Andrzejczak.
Hello everybody, thank you very much for joining us this evening. First of all, may I extend my gratitude once more to our host nation, Poland, for hosting such a marvellous conference here. I think I'll begin by giving you an outcome from the final Chiefs of Defence Staff meeting for 2018. We had a very busy agenda today, which allowed the Chiefs of Defence Staff of all 29 allies to discuss a wide range of topics and challenges that face our alliance. The discussions were frank and thought-provoking throughout, and the Chiefs of Defence Staff have given their direction and guidance, which will be provided in Brussels to the North Atlantic Council in preparation for this week's forthcoming Defence Ministers meeting. The Chiefs of Defence reaffirmed their commitment to NATO operations and missions. They discussed the potential for better coherence and coordination with organisations operating in the same regions with similar goals. They stressed and emphasised their commitment to Afghanistan. As military leaders, we acknowledge that significant challenges remain and that insurgents continue to use violence against civilians and the security forces. But in the face of these challenges, the Afghan security forces are doing an outstanding job. They've now been in the lead for 3 years, and we welcome their determination and commitment to improve their ability to conduct offensive operations, develop their special forces, their air force and other capabilities, and above all, to deny the Taliban their strategic objectives. Our aim is simple: to support, train, assist and advise the Afghan security forces so they can create the conditions for a peaceful solution. An Afghan-led and Afghan-owned peace process is essential to a long-term, inclusive political settlement. On NATO's mission in Iraq, the Chiefs of Defence noted that the mission will maintain a modest and scalable footprint and complement ongoing and future efforts of the coalition and other relevant international bodies such as the United Nations, the European Union, as appropriate. Turning to military strategy, the Chiefs of Defence agreed the need to focus both on current means and capabilities for the alliance based on a broad and strengthened deterrence and defence posture in order to contribute to projecting stability and strengthening security outside its territory, thereby contributing to alliance security overall. We stress the need to look to the future and, where possible, anticipate future requirements based on the analysis provided by our strategic commanders. We emphasise the strategy should guide all current and future military work strands, including emerging domains. We reiterated our support for the development of our readiness initiative and the need to increase responsiveness, heighten readiness, improve reinforcement across the alliance. The alliance faces a wide range of threats and challenges, and the Chiefs of Defence highlighted the importance of keeping pace with technological advances through a focus on innovation. On the implementation of the adapted command structure for the alliance, the Chiefs of Defence welcome the hard work and commitment that's gone on to begin implementation to provide an adapted command structure which is robust, resilient and fit for purpose. And the NATO command structure is the backbone of our alliance. Finally, in our last session of the day, the Chiefs of Defence elected the next Director General of the International Military Staff. And I would now like to announce and congratulate Lieutenant General Hans-Werner Wehrmann from the Republic of Germany, who will become the next Director General of the International Military Staff with effect from the summer of 2019. For nearly 70 years, NATO has helped to preserve the peace and stability of Europe and the wider Euro-Atlantic area. We continue to stand resolved and united in our core collective defence mission. That's why NATO is the most successful and the most valuable alliance in history. And with that, I hand over to General Andrzejczak. Raymond, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much indeed. To keep in the same direction, I'm supposed to speak in English because we are in the NATO conference. But how many of you are Polish? Or how many? No Polish? Nie wiem, czy mam być po polsku, czy po angielsku. Okay. Okay, so let's try in English. First of all, the big privilege and honor for Poland and for me personally that we're hosting such important conference here in Warsaw. We had a chance to discuss future. Mostly we were talking about the future, about the operations we're facing, and about strategy we have to adopt to be effective, building a security environment, and also about the readiness, or something what we discuss and describe as a new culture of readiness. But for me, as a Chief of General Staff, as a Polish officer, as a citizen of Poland, also is important our historical context. Not only Poland is effective NATO member, and we are effective in operations, but also in organizing such important conferences. So the many compliments I heard, I'm transferring to my officers, NCOs, and everybody who prepare such important conference. Also, I would like to repeat that for Poles, this conference has additional historical context because we have a 100th anniversary of General Staff very soon, which is a main brain of strategic vision of Polish armed forces in this part of Europe. And also because we have a 100th anniversary of Polish independence. There will be a chance to explain, to present the part of the history, part of the Polish culture, not only here a very official classified conferences, but also we prepare some additional program to explain the Polish context, historical context. So we Polish understand what the independence is about. So we lost for 123 years independence. And without common understanding and without the alliance, building a security environment is not possible. So this, putting together our fruitful discussion today and historical context and 100th anniversary is absolutely great reflection for Poles where we are today, what happened 100 years ago, and what the future of Poland and our alliance will be. Thank you.
We've got time for a couple of questions. We are a little bit late starting, so we haven't got long. Can I ask you to raise your hand and give us your name and the title you work for? Sir, front row.
Rafał Losiecki, defense24.pl. I would like to switch to Polish if possible, and I have two questions. First to General Andrzejczak and second to Air Chief Marshal Pitch. Moje pierwsze pytanie, panie generale,
My first question, General, pertains to the 4x30 initiative and to potential Poland's contribution to this undertaking. I suppose that decisions have not been taken yet as to what exactly this contribution will be. So my question is rather what options are being considered right now. And my next question to the chairman of a military committee, it's to the adaptation of the NATO's command structure. Our Minister of Defense, Mariusz Błaszczak, mentioned it this morning. Poland would like for the headquarters of the national component to be set up in Szczecin. Is NATO already certain whether another land forces component command is to be established, and what is the future potential for such a decision to be taken? Well, if I may, as regards the 4x30 initiative, this is a way to present our adapted culture. It's a bit premature to say what forces exactly will be engaged, but we have to look broadly, not only looking at the land forces, but also in the naval domain and the air force, but also in cyber warfare. Today's conference was an excellent opportunity to compare our viewpoints, to compare our positions. Each member state has a somewhat different perspective due to a historical context, but also demographics and other conditions. So it was an opportunity to discuss these matters, but no decisions have been taken as yet. We will continue to discuss in order to make sure that these forces are available as soon as possible. We want to increase our readiness. We want to increase our capacity. But as I have mentioned, we should join our national efforts, our national programs, and coordinate them with what is happening in the context of the adaptation of NATO structure. And we should not forget also about efforts made by the European Union. So we want to create synergy in order to become more effective.
Headquarters on Thursday and can confirm the very impressive military headquarters. And of course it is multinational with your partners. And so today we have discussed options for future command and control. And the discussions have been very harmonious. It'll be for the operational command led by the Supreme Allied Commander Europe to develop those options into future plans. And in due course, I'm sure that the Polish arrangements will be made clear to you. But it was a very good discussion, and we, as an alliance, we respect the capabilities that Poland brings. Poland is a strong leading ally in the alliance, and that includes command and control.
Wojciech Cegielski, Polish Radio. I would like to ask both of you gentlemen on the implementation of the decision from the July's NATO summit in Brussels. You've mentioned the 430 initiative and the new command structure. As the military committee is the body who is also responsible for developing the details of the decisions made on the summit. So I would like to ask if there were some concrete decisions on how it would look like were taken today, and on which stage we are right now. I mean, if you gentlemen discussed all of the plans and will take it to the next stage with the next week defense ministers meeting, or if the committee will discuss it in the future as well, the details of these 2 points. Thank you very much.
Well, I'm sure many of you have seen the summit from the communique from the Brussels summit, which is available on the NATO portal. And it is a very important document. Our role as the military committee at the Chiefs of Defence session with 29 allies is to determine which tasks fall to us from that communique, and then develop a plan that is coherent and consistent with what our political heads of state and government have given us. And today is a very important first meeting of the military committee since the summit to bring to life the coherence between those plans. And that's what we've been doing all day. The next stage is to report back to the defence ministers this week, including the Polish defence minister, on our progress, and that progress will continue. So the direct answer to your question is, today is an important step in the journey, but the journey will continue. Right?
Yeah, absolutely agree. I know that all of you would like to have some details and some attractive information described that way. In Polish Armed Forces, we really would like to be tactically aggressive, operationally effective, and strategically patient. So please give us a chance just to translate our political discussion into the military language and to avoid any misunderstanding. And what the General is talking about, the cohesion of efforts, there'll be a time for us to prepare the most effective option.
Yes, Karol Surówka, also Polish Radio. The Minister of Polish Defense called for a larger presence of NATO forces in Poland. Was this a topic of today's discussion? And if so, do you see it as a NATO presence, or maybe as a project, as the Polish president called it, a Fort Trump, so a American military base in Poland?
Okay. So the additional training objective we've achieved that everybody is speaking English, even Poles here. No, the discussion is about the U.S. Contribution, U.S. presence here is still ongoing, is still under political decisions. We military just discussing about the options, many options, and there's no decision taken so far, but discussion is very effective even here. So it's definitely we need the time to prepare the most effective one.
And of course, there is a presence of NATO in Poland. NATO is the host for a number of organizations, and I've visited many of them myself. And of course, importantly, NATO demonstrates deterrence on a daily basis through the enhanced forward presence of the battle group here in Poland. And so bilateral discussions can continue, but again, I reassure you that the Alliance views Poland as a very strong, committed, leading member, and that includes a commitment to base our forces here for appropriate purposes, including exercises and showing deterrence.
Thank you. We've got time for one more.
Thank you very much. My name is for RT Germany. As you have mentioned deterrence against adversaries, I would like to...
Switch on microphone, please, because we cannot hear you. It's okay.
It's better?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
All right. You mentioned deterrent against any kind of adversaries. And I would like to ask maybe a general question for both of you gentlemen. And the purpose of NATO is to defend the member countries of NATO and deter any kind of adversary. Is there a serious threat now for Europe, or respectively for any specific member country of NATO? And if yes, by whom and in what form?
Please.
Well, of course, NATO has a capability to understand the risk picture it faces. And sometimes those risks can turn into threats. But NATO studies the risks that are out there as they evolve and continues to adapt to them. Again, I repeat that the enhanced forward presence here in Poland and elsewhere in the region, in the Baltic countries of Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia, is a response to the activities of Russia by taking the Crimea. And in that sense, NATO continues to deter. There are a number of risks that are non-force-based, and they include the news environment itself. They include understanding, and of course, one of the important factors that all allies bring to the NATO table is the understanding of the region and the environment. And all the regions of the alliance, and remember the alliance has a very large area of responsibility, have different threats and risk perceptions. And we do not have the time to go through all of them, but they will vary with the geography of the alliance. And that's quite a simple statement, but I think it's very important that we understand that the context changes depending on where you are in the world. And at the moment, we have a series of risks that we've identified, and we respond with presence, with training, with exercises, in order to generate deterrence. It is actually, that is what the alliance is for. And that provides the sense of collective security for the people of Poland and the people of the other NATO allies.
Yeah, definitely. That was a very broad NATO perspective, but also every single member of NATO countries, they have own one. From Polish perspective, what's going on in the Ukraine is definitely influencing the security environment. So we consider it as a crisis situation. So we have to be ready and to react and to protect security here in Poland. As the general mentioned, many dimensions, not only typical military, but also we have cyber, which can influence the security environment, as well as refugees movement through the Europe that can influence the situation. So NATO is about the adaptation, not only to the conventional threat or conventional crisis areas, but also different domains. That's our philosophy of readiness.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Dziękuję bardzo.